and having more wealth. That's what we're breaking down today because sometimes I think that when people are thinking about money, because that's the lens that we're going to describe wealth, although according to me personally, I define wealth as more than just money. But for the purposes of today and our conversation that we're going to be having around risk and around building and growing wealth, we're going to be talking about it through the lens of money. Okay, so if you're brand new to me, my name is Susan McVeigh, and I'm a married mama of two and a business, sales, and wealth strategist. And I help ambitious female entrepreneurs and leaders grow and become their wealthiest version. So today we're talking about wealth because as I was sitting here pondering what is it that I could share that might be helpful for somebody today, so let me backtrack. Before I came into this online space, I spent a whole career, a whole lifetime building and helping other people grow enormous amounts of wealth, but also helping people who had very, very little. And really just paying attention and observing the differences between those who have and those who have not. And the reality is that the majority of millionaires in the world today, the people who you would consider to be extremely wealthy, are not people who have inherited wealth. They typically are the ones who have had to work for it and to earn it in some way. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people who have gotten a leg up. There absolutely is, but they are very, very few and far between. They're more in the minority as opposed to the majority. So that's the lens, the context by which I'm going to be sharing this information, because I think sometimes we look outside of ourselves and we look at people who have the level of wealth that we desire, and it can be very easy to point a finger and to say they have all of these advantages, they have all of these privileges, they have all of these opportunities that I may not have. And while that may or may not be true, the reality is that we all have something. We all have some innate gift or opportunity that you might just be overlooking, and you might be able to use that. We won't be going through that today in this particular video, but I want to paint the picture because I think it's really important that you recognize that we all have the power to get wealth. We all have the ability to generate wealth through what we know, through who we are, through our connections, and through the relationship and the influence that we already have. Even if it's just one person that you might have the ability to change and impact their lives from, that can quickly snowball. So what do you do when you actually have wealth and you're trying to build more? What do you do when you are, in a situation, or maybe you're in the early stages? And so you let me know. Hello, Martello. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. If you have some way to make money right now, then you have the means by which you can grow wealth. You can build wealth. And the greatest risk that each and every single one of us has to actually having more wealth is us, like you. You are the greatest risk. And so there's 3 different components that I want to talk about. And I would love to know what you think. So as you come in, hello. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Hello, Chuck. Hello, I'm going to butcher this one. Yakslayak. Hello from Turkey. Welcome. So if you right now want to be wealthy, that's who I'm talking to right now. So hopefully that's you, that describes you. And I want you to share, if you're comfortable sharing, what does wealth look like for you, right? Is there a certain dollar amount? Is there a certain level that you're looking for? A lot of the women that I work with, they want to become millionaires because it is a big milestone. And there are little milestones that are also big milestones on the way to achieving that level of wealth. The greatest risk to building any kind of wealth is always going to be you, because if something happens to you, then what do, right? And I share this because I've gone through not just one health crisis, but multiple. I've had family members who have been extremely sick. Do you know anybody who has not been able to work for an extended period of time? Maybe that's you. And when that happens, then your plans are derailed, right? Like the thing that you counted on, maybe it was your ability to make money. that may or may not be there anymore. And depending on the job that you have, that may or may not still allow you to make money when you're not actually button in chair, going into work every day. And even if you're a business owner, your ability to generate more income most of the time is dependent on you. Still, you have to lead and manage. Even if you're the CEO, you still have to do something. It just doesn't magically appear simply because you think it, you believe it, and then it just shows up. Would that could happen, right? So the greatest risk, if that's you, is we need to put mechanisms or systems in place in order to mitigate that risk. That's not what we're going to talk about today, but there's 3 things that I want to specifically dive into that are going to be helpful if you are trying to build wealth and you want to understand how to do that. Okay, because it's a big topic. So, Monet, who cares? Well, if you don't care, then you shouldn't be on here because you got more than enough stuff probably to do in your life. So bless and release. Goodbye. Hello from Higuja, Arslane. Okay, you have $6,000. Well, that's, I'm going to butcher your name, from Turkey. Yokslak. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm so sorry. So I don't know who you are. I'm not licensed. So this is not financial advice. This is for educational purposes because my background is in finance and sales. And so I'm sharing this information in the hopes that it might help somebody who might need it. So you can let me know what questions you have. And if I can address them, then I will try my best to be able to answer them for you, whether we go through it or at the end. So Yokslayak. I will give you some tips or suggestions for what you can consider, because ultimately the decision is up to you what you invest your money in. So the greatest risk to your wealth and building your wealth is always going to be you. And there's a saying where the people who often make the most money are the ones that once they make a decision and they invest their money, they do nothing with it. Like they put it in and then they leave it alone. And then the other ones are the ones who die. They just pass away. And for the same sort of reason, because human beings innately operate from emotions. And oftentimes, if you are, doing what other people are doing, you are following the herd, then by nature, you are probably somebody's exit strategy for an investment that they are hoping to make money on. This is why when we think about, buy low and sell high, there are very, very few people who actually can do that because of the emotions that surge through your body. There's a whole bunch of brain chemicals and hormones and all kinds of stuff that go on in your body that will make it very difficult for you to make rational decisions. So when you pick a strategy and when you understand what it is that you want your money to do, it makes it very easy or easier for you to stick with that plan over the long term. So there's 3 things that I want you to understand or be able to take a look at, right? Because if the greatest risk to your wealth is you, then there's 3 components that I want you to know about. Number 1 is that often, especially when you're in the early stages of building your wealth, it's going to be a lack of experience. And sometimes we use the excuse that I don't know enough, which ties into number 2, which is a lack of skills or knowledge. These are things that you can learn. You can learn how to manage your money. You can learn about finances. You can learn about investing. You can learn about the stock market. You can learn about crypto. You can learn about setting up a portfolio and options and trades and all of these different things, right? We're not going into the nitty-gritty details because depending on where you are in the world, there's going to be different things that you have available and different regulations that will basically set the rules and the standards for what you can and cannot do. So I don't know where you are in the world. I'm not your financial advisor and I'm not licensed to provide you with financial advice. You need to find somebody or be able to understand how to do things properly in your country of choice, okay? So Tariq says, think happy, be happy. Absolutely. So number 1, your lack of experience, and number 2, your lack of skills and knowledge are going to increase the amount of risk that you have when it comes to building your wealth. The third thing is time. So how do we address these, right? Because knowing that these are issues, knowing that these are things that you're going to encounter as you build and grow your wealth, then how do we make sure that you're armed with the resources in order to be able to make the decisions and to do the things that you want to do in order to build and grow your wealth? So for lack of experience, oftentimes we want to wait, we want to delay until we have a certain amount of money, until we consider ourselves to be rich or wealthy enough that we can do the things that we want to do. But true wealth isn't actually built that way. Oftentimes, just like doing anything in life, if you wait until you feel ready, you're probably late. And so the best time to start is now, even with zero experience. Because if you don't start, you will always have zero experience. Whereas if you start, yes, you might make a mistake, but if you believe that making mistakes will just help you to learn, then you're going to learn faster. And if you're not sure what to do, then don't invest everything that you have available, even though you have it, right? So as an example, our friend here from Turkey said, I have $6,000 to invest. What should I invest in? Well, if you've never invested before, chances are if you go to somebody who is licensed where you live in the world and they are giving you actual advice specific to you based off of your circumstances, based off of your goals, based off of your experience, based off of your knowledge, based off of what it is that you want to accomplish, because that's personalized for you. So most places in the world, they're going to need to complete what's called a Know Your Client or KYC. Even if you're doing it on your own and people grumble because they're like, why do you need all this information? Because it will essentially limit the amount of investment options that you have available based off of the information that you provide. If you have very few assets, if you have very little experience, then you're probably not going to be allowed to purchase the most risky types of opportunities unless you say, I know what I'm doing. I know that I'm going to risk all of this. I expect that zero will come back. And essentially, that company, brokerage firm, advisor, whatever, is washing their hands and saying, you take on 100% of the risk, because they know that there's a very, very high likelihood that it's not going to go the way that you want. Okay. A licensed advisor, this is one of the reasons why, depending on how you answer your know your client forms, they will tell you flat out, you can't invest in this. And they will refuse to do the trade because they have a fiduciary duty. They are legally obligated to make sure that they cover their butt to say, you don't know enough. And because of that, I'm going to protect you from yourself. Even though you got a hot stock tip, even though you got a hot investment strategy from Joe down the street, that you need to buy this because it's going to go up. If it doesn't fit for you, then a licensed person isn't necessarily going to allow you to do that, okay? Because you have zero experience. So the best way to gain experience is to start. And you can start for a small amount, right? You don't need to wait until you have hundreds or thousands of dollars. Start with what you got. Yes, hon?
Is this all the color gone bad?
Yeah.
Mom,
Sorry.
where's all these gifts that I bought him?
I don't know. I'm on a live video, hon. Sorry, guys. Hashtag real life. This is like live, and I'm a mom, so she needed some help. Tariq says, I live in Pakistan. Great. I live in Canada. Happy to meet you. Okay, let me just see. Reggie. Welcome, Reggie. I don't know if you're still here. And Lucas. Okay, so with a lack of experience, you need to just start with whatever it is that you are able to access. So this is tied to number 2, which is a lack of knowledge or skills. So before you start anything, this is my recommendation. You can take it or leave it because I don't know you and maybe you don't know me, right? Side note, if this is your first time meeting me, seeing me, put 1 in the comments. I would love to be able to say hello. So if you lack the skills The good news is you can learn. So if you want to learn, there are plenty of resources. Like you're here on YouTube, there's tons of people who can teach you the ins and outs of how to buy certain things on certain platforms. I am not that teacher for you because frankly, I don't want to teach that. But I want you to understand the strategy. I want you to understand the principles. I want you to understand how to think like a wealthy person so that as you start to make money and make more money, you don't lose it all simply because you don't know how to keep it. You don't know how to manage it. You don't know how to be a wealthy person because it makes you feel a certain way. Okay? So when you think about your skills and your experience combined together, then you are going to be able to increase in your knowledge. You're going to increase in your competence, which is your skill set, and that automatically should increase your confidence. So as you keep moving through, and for some of you, it's going to happen very fast, right? That's going to depend on your background, your skill set, your knowledge, your experience, your own trust in your own abilities in yourself. And if you are somebody who loves to learn and also knows that making mistakes is part of that journey, then chances are, as you keep learning and making mistakes, that you will get back on the horse and just keep going. The thing with money that we all need to understand, especially when it comes to building wealth, is the longer the time that you have, which is the third component that I want to talk about, the better off you are. Because if something goes wrong, you have time to recover, right? It's just like if you were injured. If you were injured and you needed to get back to work tomorrow, but that you broke your arm, like there's a certain amount of time for your arm to heal. The younger you are, the easier it is. As with most things, the younger you are, the easier it is. And so the older that you get, the longer that you wait, the harder it can become, not because you don't have the opportunity. It's because you are waiting. And if you've already waited this long, guess what? It becomes way easier for you to just keep waiting rather than just dive right in and just do it. So even though it may seem like it's not worth it to start, I really want to encourage you that in order to grow a large amount of wealth, we all start at zero, right? There's very, very few people in the world that have inherited the level of wealth that they desire. Very few people who are, millionaires and beyond were given their wealth. They earned it. They worked for it in some capacity. And as a result, if right now you're waiting, please don't wait. The earliest opportunity that you will have is today. And that means that if right now, after we have this conversation, that you go and you start to increase one of those three areas, either your lack of experience, because you're going to start doing something. And maybe for you, that means that you start a paper account. What that means is you start an account where you have play money. It's not your real money. You put in, let's say you have the 6,000 that our friend from Turkey has available to invest. And instead of putting that 6,000 in for real, because you have to learn what it is that you want to invest in. You need to do some research or figure things out, really understand how the ebbs and flows of the market run. But more importantly, because the markets go up and down and they'll just keep doing that forever and a day. How will you react to seeing your 6,000 swing to 10,000, right? And then conversely, what happens when that 6 suddenly drops to 1? What will you do? How will you react? What will that make you feel about yourself? What will you do as a result? And so before you get into the actual nuts and bolts of spending your earned money, there are usually ways for you to be able to test things out depending on the platform, depending on the types of accounts that you're building. So do some research, because again, I can't possibly cover off every single place and platform and type of account that would be available for where you are in the world. So hopefully the information I'm giving you is enough so that you can go and do some research on your own, because you still have to do the work, right? And so your lack of experience shouldn't be an excuse as to why you cannot start, build, and grow wealth. If you are missing the skills, which is the second piece around your skills or your knowledge, you can learn, right? Where do you want to start? So I personally would recommend that for people who don't have a lot of experience, you're going to want to start with something that is low cost and low involvement, right? Now, again, depending on where you are in the world, that's going to vary. But oftentimes, and this is not financial advice, these are things that I want to arm you with, equip you with, so that you can go to good old Google and do some searching for yourself. It might look like a mutual fund. It might look like a low cost index fund. It might look like something like an ETF, an exchange traded fund, or a REIT, which is a real estate investment fund, a real estate investment trust. So these are things that you can Google, you can research and see, is this something that interests me? Is this something that aligns with my values? Is this something that I would be okay to invest in? And then you have to just see whether or not you actually would invest in those things based off of your knowledge. So you will have to increase your experience. You will have to increase your knowledge and your skill level. These are things that you can do little by little. And if you're not familiar with some of these things, you can go and get help. Hopefully you hire somebody who can help you to do this. Or you invest the time to research this on your own, whether it's by reading a book, taking a course, learning through YouTube University, right? There's lots of people on here that will teach you the ins and outs of every single investment platform that's probably made to mankind, the different types of investment options that you could invest your money in. And you just have to do a little bit of research and figure out, does this work? And again, before you spend all of your money, before you invest everything that you have, I want you to start with a small amount so that you can learn, so that you can make some mistakes, so that you can figure things out, so that you can get comfortable and familiar with how you're going to react when you're doing certain things, right? So those are the two main pieces. The third one is time. The earlier you can start, the better, because then the miracle of compounding, which is I think it's the eighth wonder of the world, right? You're going to be able to have your money make more money for you. And the wealthiest people know that this is something that they want to take advantage of. Now, there's lots of other components, like being able to turn your income into assets and things of that nature. That's part of what I work with clients on. If you need more specific principles, go and grab my ebook, ABCs of Building Wealth. It's going to be in the description of this video or in my channel. Okay, so go and grab that in order to be able to help you. So when you think about time, again, a lot of the clients that I work with are, later in life. So they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even beyond. And what I will say is, whatever amount of time that you have, you need to make it work for you. You cannot keep delaying your dreams, your goals, and desires for a time when you feel like I'm going to have more then, because you don't allow time to work for you. Now, it's difficult because it requires discipline and it requires you putting yourself first and saying that my financial future, something that is still a ways off, even if it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? 20 years plus, that future is just as important to me as my current present day-to-day, my needs, my dreams, my hopes, my desires, the thing that is like pushing up against me. And to be able to say, I am making a decision that I am investing in my own future, that is just as important, if not more important, for me to forego. Maybe it's, spending something on an ad that just popped up and you're like, oh, that looks good. Bloop. That $50 over a long period of time can make a huge difference. And you might not believe me. You might be thinking, well, it's not such a big deal. If you invest it in something that's appropriate for you, which I don't know what that is because I don't know who you are, and I don't have any information about you, right? A licensed financial advisor will take a know your client. And or the platform that you want to invest in yourself directly will make you fill out a KYC or a know your client. They do this on purpose because it allows them to help direct what it is that you can and cannot invest in. And so if right now you're going to wait until I make this amount, I'm going to wait until I get my promotion, I'm going to wait until I have that next job, I'm going to wait until I build that business, I'm going to wait until my business hits a certain amount. I'm going to tell you right now that there are so many people that I have either worked with or had conversations with through my experience back in corporate and here in the online space where it doesn't seem to matter how much you make, they're still not making enough. It's just, I want to make more. I want to make more because life happens. And there is such a thing called lifestyle creep, where the more you make, the more you spend. The more you spend, the more you make. The more you make, the more you spend. And it's this kind of like a vicious cycle. And that's not to say that you cannot have nice things and you cannot spend on the things that you want. But if you're doing it exclusively without any sort of eye to the future, is it no wonder that there are so many people who are worried and anxious and depressed about their finances, that it causes so much mental anguish? It's because it can bring up all kinds of baggage and all kinds of guilt and shame and blame and past stories, not just for what you've done, but what maybe your parents have done, what your grandparents have done, and then all the way up the chain through your ancestral line. Like, there's a lot riding on you when you're the first of your line that is achieving a certain level of wealth. And I recognize that. I understand that. And so that's part of the reason why I do these videos, is because I want to help you to break through, to break free, to let go, because you deserve it. And the version of you who is already inside of you wants and desires and believes for a better future. And that better future is not in the future. It is now. It is today. It is in this moment that you get to make a decision that will powerfully connect who you are now to who you are when you have accomplished all the things that you desire. And the decisions that you make today shape your ability to actually have that, to fully receive it. Does this make sense? Right? Tariq now experiences what matters. There is no tomorrow. Tariq, you're a very wise person. Right? I know AI very well in data science. Amazing. Past 12, I need a job. Okay. I'm just seeing if there's any questions. So here's the quick recap, okay? Because the greatest risk to you building and growing wealth is you. Now, thankfully, you can fix, that's not a problem. It means that we need to kind of help shore up your ability to stay healthy, to know what you're doing, and to make decisions such that you would be proud of yourself, right? So that you actually can build the level of wealth. And the three aspects that will trip you up, at least in the early stages, is no experience or lack of experience, right? You might not have as much experience as you want. Experience is a funny thing in that you have to do it in order to gain it. Now, until you have enough experience, you can kind of proxy it, like you can substitute it in for skills and knowledge. Now, if you're missing that too, then that's the area where I want you to start thinking about, what do I need to learn? Who do I need to learn from? What specifically do I want to use to build my wealth? And who can help me to do that, right? Because there's a million different ways that you can become wealthy. There's a million different ways that you can become a millionaire or even beyond, right? So thinking that it only has to be done one way, and maybe somebody has made you feel that way, is not real, okay? You can make money doing whatever it is that God has put you on this green earth to do, and you can make a lot of it. If you can make money, and right now there are people around the world that are selling like recycled garbage just so that you can get something in the mail and you can unbox it. Like, there's no utility to that, right? You have a skill set, you have knowledge, you have wisdom, you have experience, and you have gifts that are within you today that could impact more people's lives than simply getting people to buy recycled stuff so that they can receive mail and unbox it. Like I think there's a guy in Japan that does this. There's a man in Japan who has made money, and not a small amount, right? I think it's over 6 figures of income, where he just has to be. I want you to understand that. He just has to be there. Like, people hire him because there's a loneliness pandemic in Japan, and they just want someone there with them to like sit. He doesn't have to talk. He doesn't have to interact. He doesn't have like nothing. He literally just is there, and they kind of rent him out. And if they want to go to dinner or they need to go run an errand, then he's just there. Can you imagine? So if right now you're thinking like, I can't do this, well, that's up to you. Whatever you say and whatever you believe, that's going to influence your outcomes far more than my belief in you. But I do believe that you have the ability, and that's part of the reason why you're here. Otherwise, we wouldn't have divinely met today. So knowledge and experience, right, can go hand in hand. The good thing about building wealth and making money and becoming a millionaire, these are things you can learn how to do, right? These are things that you can learn how to do. So the mechanism, how you learn this, is up to you, right? Do you prefer learning on YouTube? Because that's how we're meeting right now. If so, go and Google some people. And if there are specific things, you can look on my channel, because there's a few different things that I've put around principles of building wealth, but I'm not going to teach you the specific tactics. Like, here's how you open up a Wealth Simple account, and here's how you do an investment trade, and here's how you pick a stock portfolio. Like, I'm not going to teach you that. Okay, because again, there are different components of that doesn't light me up. But in order for you to be the person who can keep this money and understand how much you should be investing in order to reach your goals, those are things that I have done and I could do in my sleep. Okay, so learn the skills, because until you have the experience, having the skill set will increase your confidence, because your competence is directly correlated or connected to your confidence. And the more confidence that you have, the easier it is for you to move forward and take the actions that are aligned to your wealth goals. Okay? Make sense? Tariq, we are all stuck in the matrix of this world. I know. Yeah, absolutely. Would you search on the web? Finger of God, 369. Finger of God. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry, Tariq. So the last piece, because this is a recap, right? So number one, if you're the greatest risk to building your wealth, then we have to deal with your lack of experience. We have to deal with your lack of knowledge or skill set. And then the last piece is time, the perception that maybe you don't have enough time. So time is not real, right? Quantum physics has proven that, but virtually every religion under the sun has some sort of formulation around, the bendability of time. We're not going to go into that today, but if that would be an interesting topic, just let me know in the comments and I can certainly add that onto the roster. So the more time that you give yourself, the easier it is for you to build wealth, because the nature of just about every single investment on the face of the earth is that it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And so it's just a matter of how much up does it go and how much down does it go. And because people are people, we behave the way that we have always behaved through the span of time. And as a result, patterns of behavior emerge. And these are demonstrated through the cycles that we see in virtually every investment class known to mankind, including crypto, right? Which is the newest kind of form of asset class. And so that's why I bring that up, because sometimes we think, well, it's a brand new thing. It, is unknown, it's unproven, and we don't know how people are going to react. Yeah, we know how people are going to react. And because people are the ones that are buying these options, these opportunities of different investments, then by and large, we know generally how they're going to react. And so when we look through time and look at the patterns, over a longer time horizon. So when you look at most investments, even the real estate market, if you were only looking at an isolated period of time, right? If you only look at 1 year, because it's a short time frame, the likelihood that you will recover if it goes up or down is very small. Like if it's going up in a year, then chances are good that you'll be up higher. But conversely, if you look at a year and it's going down, chances are high that it's going to be down when that investment is looked at. If you pull the time horizon out, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, there are very, very few asset classes where from start to end of that time horizon that it's not up. Now, it may not be up a lot, right? Again, depending on what you've invested in and the risk profile of that particular investment. But when you zoom out, when you look out, not just zoomed into one point, the amount of time that you give that investment to work for you then suddenly can work for you. Your greatest risk is now going to be, can you weather the storms of this up and down motion as history repeats itself over and over and over again, that you can stop from yourself and not switch when the emotions of, oh my God, it's going up, right? That you suddenly are following the herd and now somebody is exit strategy, right? That when you flip out because you're like, oh my gosh, my 6,000 has tanked to 1,000, that you suddenly want to pull out all of your money. Well, that solidifies your loss, as opposed to, did I make the right investment decision? Do I believe in this strategy? Is this still appropriate for my risk profile, for my time horizon, for my experience, for my knowledge, for the things that I'm comfortable with? Is there something that's materially changed about the company or the companies that I've invested in, the project, if you're dealing with crypto? Has there something materially changed that makes me decide that this is no longer a worthwhile investment? If the answer is no, then you would be better off riding it out, because time has proven, history has proven, that as we allow more time to work for us, that just about every single asset class in history has gone up. You take every slice and you expand out the time horizon, and there will be a point where you see this. Typically, it's been around the 10-year time frame, okay? Even if there is a disastrous thing that happens in the middle, if you give it enough time, it will recover. As human beings, we often don't give ourselves enough time. And that's for everything across the board. But in investments, the more time that you give it, the better off you are because of compounding. So do not delay for tomorrow what you can start today. And right now you may be saying, well, but Susan, like it's Christmas, like how can I afford to do this? Like, do you know what's going on in the economy, inflation and unemployment and yada, yada, yada. Yes, I do. I do know. I probably know more than most because of my background in finance. But the reality is, if you do not make the time, if you do not make the opportunity happen, and it does not have to be a huge amount. I have shared before that when I first started this, straight out of college, working $10.50 an hour after like 5 years going to school with student loans, with credit card debt, not wanting to move back home, that it was not the right time for me to start investing. That didn't make any sense at all. In fact, that was a second job. I was working another job where I was only getting paid $8 and I think 50 cents an hour, right? So did it make sense for me to start investing and start building wealth? Not at all. And yet, if I had put that off, it would have made such a huge impact, because I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do today, and my children's lives would be very different, because those habits, the discipline that I learned in just starting small, $25 paycheck, right? That's what it took in order to create that habit and that routine, and to be able to see, I can do this. And that's why I share with you, you don't have to have hundreds or thousands of dollars to start building wealth. In fact, I would say if you're waiting until you have thousands of dollars to be able to invest, that it's too late. Like that's going to take a while, or not, right? Because I don't know your situation. But from my experience, the ones who need to build wealth the most could do it way earlier with way less, because then you allow time to help you. And time is your best friend when it comes to building wealth. So the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Probably if you want to be a millionaire, it was 20 years ago. And even if you say to me, Susan, I'm only in my 20s. Yeah, I know. How different would your life be if your parents had had the means to be able to say, I'm going to put aside $25 every 2 weeks, every month, right? $100. Like, it doesn't seem like a huge amount, and it may feel like, oh, I can't afford to do that. But when you think about, what do you spend on your cell phone bill? Is it $20, $25? It's probably more, right? Is it $50 or $100? And yet we feel like we can't do without that. And I understand. I mean, I'm talking to you on my phone. But the reality is that if we are able to, and this is why I said it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy, because you have to make decisions that will be trade-offs, right? Can you say no to something that feels like you have to have it? And or if you really are stuck where I don't have anything extra to give, Susan, then look at what else could you generate income from? Is there a side hustle? Is there some freelance opportunity? Is there some knowledge inside of your own brain, right? What God has planted inside of you that could be brought out that could help other people, right? Look at I have examples listed in my description for my channel, right? My ABCs of Building Wealth ebook is the culmination of like more than 2 decades of advice and help and information, some resources, some guides that will help people, especially if you are an entrepreneur, on what are the money management principles that you need to put in place in order to help you with the habits, with the routines, with the understanding, with the knowledge, such that you actually can implement this in your day-to-day life and then manage well, because money is stewardship, and to be able to steward what it is that you're making, because the more that you make, hopefully, the more that you keep and the more that you have to continue to grow, as opposed to the more that you make, the more that you spend, and then the more you have to make. I don't want you to get like trapped in that. You should want to be able to make more money simply because you are a conduit, a vessel for the good that that money can help in your life and the lives of those around you, including your family, including your communities, including the global world at large. Does this make sense? Right? So, quick recap, which we've already done, but I'm going to share it really quickly. The greatest risk to building wealth is you. And there are 3 components that I want you to start with, especially if you're earlier on in your wealth building journey. So let's say if you have under $10,000 saved, okay? Number 1 is your lack of experience. Lack of experience can only be dealt with by doing what it is that you desire. Number 2 is a lack of knowledge or skills. Well, thankfully, knowledge and skills are something that you can learn. So right now, I want you to identify, what do I need to learn about building or growing wealth? What do I need to learn about investing? What do I need to learn about managing my money or personal finances? What do I need to learn that will help me to do this? And while you're learning, that will help you to gain more experience, but also you can borrow other people's knowledge, skills, and experience, and that will allow you to feel more confident about the decisions that you're making, because you're leaning on somebody else's experience, the one who's teaching you in order to build your competence. And as you build your competence, your confidence will also increase and grow. And the third one is time. The more time that you're able to give your wealth, the more time that you're able to give your investments, you can take advantage of compounding. And as a result, your money is going to start making money for you with a smaller amount. So you don't have to invest thousands upon thousands of dollars when you start early. The less and less time that you have, the more that you have to put in. And that is 100% possible, but those are the things that you just want to consider, right? Those are the things, the components of the equation of wealth that you need to think about, because they have a direct correlation, a direct influence one on the other. If you can give yourself as much time as possible, you don't have to put in as much money to invest. If you can do both though, if you can put in as much as you possibly can and give it as much time as you possibly can give it, then you're going to grow a large amount of wealth, probably quicker than you thought. If it takes you more time though, then you're going to need to be able to understand that time is going to give you the greatest impact. And so start today. Don't delay, right? Start small, because that way you can increase your experience and your comfort, your confidence with being able to see how you're going to respond to how you build wealth and the mechanisms, the strategies that you're using in order to be able to do that. Okay, so with that, thank you for joining me. If you do have any questions or comments, feel free to add them down below. You can always go and find me on Instagram. I am at Susan McVeigh, and grab my ABCs of Building Wealth ebook. It's in the description. It's also in the channel. And if there is something that I can help you with, please feel free to shoot me a message. Thanks so much, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.